I happen to have video segments from the debate with the U.S. that I'm going to play, and then I'll get to the bit on Canada. And this is the opening statement by Ban Ki-moon, who's the General Secretary of the United Nations.
And next, may I have the pleasure to invite the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon.
Everybody knew there was something wrong when we heard that he was coming back.
Your Excellency, President Yudhoyono, President of COP, distinguished ministers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I know most of you are all exhausted from your sleepless night negotiations. In fact, I come before you very reluctantly. Frankly, I'm disappointed at the lack of progress. With a spirit of compromise and flexibility, I think you have made much progress in the last few days, and I appreciate your hard work and sense of spirit of compromise and flexibility. But now, the hour is late. It's time to decide, to make a decision. You have in your hands the ability to deliver to the people of the world a successful outcome of this 13th Conference of Parties. I appreciate that you have worked very hard for many days and nights, but let me be clear, your work is not yet done. Let me remind you that during the high-level meeting in United Nations last September, the leaders of the world expressed a firm political commitment and called for a breakthrough in Bali. In a multilateral negotiation of this nature, as all of you must have extensive experience and know-how, no delegation can get everything it wants. No one ever leaves this chamber fully satisfied. Everyone should be ready to make compromises on the basis of mutual respect, understanding, and flexibility. What separates you now is not fundamental. Distinguished ministers and delegates, I appeal to you to make the necessary agreement now. Do not risk all that you have achieved so far. The scientific realities affecting our planet demand a high level of ambition in terms of what we aspire to do, when we aspire to do it, and what resources we mobilize for that. You have before you a strong and good draft from the President of the COP. Seize the moment, this moment, for the good of all humanity. A few days ago, I noted that we were at a crossroad with one path leading toward the new global climate agreement and the other toward the betrayal of our planet and our children. You are about to take the first step down one of these paths. There is much time at stake. I'm quite confident that you will make choice wisely. Thank you very much.
So this next shorter segment I'm going to play is the U.S. announcing that they are not going to agree to consensus on this issue. And everything that was negotiated has to be agreed on by complete consensus. So that's 180 nations that have to agree to this. And in this particular case, it was 179 nations to one nation.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. Next is the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, on mitigation in our discussion here in Bali, we came with the hope that we could forge together towards a strong statement about our common global responsibility to address climate change, and recognizing that there are differences among our national circumstances and that emissions are global. Unfortunately, there have been many strong statements from many major developing country leaders of a greater role in helping to address urgently this global problem, and that doesn't seem it's going to be reflected in our outcome here in the declaration. We are hopeful that as we proceed with this process, we hope that these types of statements of goodwill will find their way into tangible specifics and commitments during negotiations and an agreed outcome. I have to say that the formulation that has been put forward we cannot accept because it does represent a significant change in the balance that I think many of us have truly worked towards over the last week. We would like to find a way forward here. We are not prepared to accept, though, this formulation at this time, but we are willing to work further to this text to find the right balance. This is an important issue. It's one in which we must act together on.
Thank you. Thank you, United States.
So that booing right there was not from a crowd. That was from the official party delegates, who are normally quite silent. And what proceeded to follow was nation after nation just sort of hammering at the U.S. and saying, this is ridiculous, we can't understand how you can have this position, and just trying to express the sentiment in the room from a number of different positions. And what was unique about that is that throughout these negotiations, because there are so many countries represented, normally they would speak in blocks. So you would have the umbrella group, which is the United States, Canada, and Japan. There's the European Union. There's the G77 plus China, which is a group of developing countries. There's the LDCs, which are the least developed countries. And also the SIDS, which are the small island developing states. And each of those groups had chosen a country to be their spokesman at this conference. And so normally, if any member of that group had anything to say, it would either be expected that it would be said by the chairman of that group, spokesman of that group, or they would vet it through the spokesman of that group. And in this particular instance, that did not happen. It was basically a free-for-all of country after country, just sort of more or less at a loss for words and just asking the U.S., why are you doing this? By far the most impactful statement was made by the minister from Papua New Guinea. And this is the clip here. And this was the final statement that was made. It was sort of the end result of the train that was started by the minister from South Africa. But it became famous, and the minister, Kevin Conrad, has since become a little bit of a celebrity for saying what he did, and you could probably see why. But what he said was that there's a spot here for every nation. We created a spot at this conference for every nation, and we're hoping to have the U.S. lead. We're not asking the U.S. to lead, but we were hoping to have the U.S. lead. And then he said, but there's a phrase from where I come from that says, if you're not leading, then get out of the way. And that was followed also by an uncharacteristically raucous response from the official delegates. People were cheering, people were getting up and applauding. And then following that, after a somewhat lengthy speech, the U.S. said, okay, we won't block consensus. And so, like I said, that has never happened in the history of these negotiations. So that was pretty huge.